Hello, and welcome to Ad Age's custom webcast sponsored by Mountain. The topic of today's webcast is why performance-powered brand marketing is a big game changer for 2024. I'm John Nioso, the editor of Ad Age Studio 30, and I'll be your moderator today. Just a few quick items to review before we begin. So we'll hear from today's presenter, and then we'll open the floor to your questions. And to participate in the Q&A portion of the webcast, all you have to do is type your question into the Ask a Question text area and then click the send button. And you may submit questions at any time during the webcast, and we'll address as many as time permits after our presenters' prepared remarks. All right, well, let's get started. So to get started, I'm very pleased to introduce Matt Collins, who's the Director of Product Marketing at Mountain. Matt, really great to see you again. Welcome, and thanks for being here today.
John, it's great to see you again, too. I hope it's not too late to say Happy New Year.
It's definitely too late, but I will not hold that against you. Happy New Year, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thank you all to the 75 of you who are here and building. My name is Matt Collins, and as John said, I head up product marketing for Mountain. And you know, here we are. We find ourselves 2 weeks roughly into February, and my maybe not so spicy take of the day is that I think February is a great time to be a marketer. I think of this month, and in fact, the weekend we're about to have, as the unofficial start of the marketing new year. And I say that for a couple of reasons. The first is that the NFL is about to crown a champion. We were talking beforehand, I don't have a dog in this fight, but it's a big game and the biggest game. And but it's also become known as a place to catch the very best advertising from some of the bluest of the blue chip brands who are going to show up and are going to indicate how they're going to be engaging the market, what kind of message they're going to be giving their customers for the whole year. And so it's become known in many ways as much for the commercials as it is for what happens on the field, which is very exciting. And for those of us who are marketers, this is a time when the world pays attention to us too, which is great. But the second reason why I think February is fantastic for marketers is that this is a time when we're finally past January, you know, like the eggnog rust is gone, like the holiday push is over. February is the time for reflection on what worked and what maybe didn't work so well in the last year, but also what might we do differently this year? How might we think about measurement different? How might we think about channels different? How might we think about creative and audience differently? And it's very much in that spirit that I want to talk today. It's that look ahead and how might we do things just a little bit differently, but to see a big impact. And so here's what I've prepared today. I am going to be talking, first of all, just about like the state of connected television through the lens of what Mountain is seeing. Mountain is a self-serve connected TV advertising platform built for performance marketers. We make connected TV scalable as a performance channel, just like paid social. And we have access to a lot of information that we've assembled, some of which today into some best practices and insights. So I'm going to give a temperature, if you will, of what's going on in the world of connected TV. And then I've got a little something for performance marketers and thinking about performance marketers and how they might be able to squeeze a little bit of brand juice out of their campaigns. And similarly, I've got something for brand marketers to think about how they can do maybe just a few things differently to not only preserve the great brand storytelling benefits of their platform, of the connected TV platform and experience, but also get a little bit better bottom of funnel results from those campaign efforts. And then finally, we're going to talk about the importance of hooking your efforts, your connected TV efforts, to the right tools of the trade to help get the maximum value, regardless of whether you see yourself as a performance marketer or a brand marketer. And I'll also acknowledge that in many companies, you know, there's a pretty hard wall between performance marketing and brand marketing. But I think what you'll see is that what I'm prescribing here is not something that will risk org chart confusion. These are just simple best practices that marketers that use Mountain employ to get the best possible results they can from the platform. So where are we with connected TV? In my lifetime, I've never seen a channel like this. And you know, when I first broke into marketing, I spent a lot of money on traditional linear TV. I was buying radio, print ads, out of home. There's never been a channel like connected TV. And here's why. It preserves all of the great branding power of traditional linear television and that advertisers have leaned on ever since the first TV aired for Bulova back in a New York Giants baseball game in 1941. It is a powerful medium for shared viewing, for lean back viewing on the biggest screen canvas that most of us have in our home. It has 15 and 30-second ad formats that have never been skippable. And we as consumers, as viewers, have come to expect that those even short ad bursts are going to deliver something entertaining, enriching, emotional back to us. And so for that reason, TV and connected TV are wonderful storytelling vehicles. But connected TV also runs on the same plumbing and wiring that digital marketing runs on. That makes connected TV faster, more precise, more efficient to operate. And so when you put those two things together, the storytelling draw of traditional TV and the speed and precision of digital, you get something that's valuable for brand marketers, but certainly very appealing to performance marketers. For the last several years, I think I certainly have talked about connected TV and the advertising and viewing phenomenon that powers it in what I'll admit is a bit of a future tense. But we're at a point now where I think it's safe to say the future's now, like the time has arrived now. And that view is reflected very much in the numbers that you'll see on this slide. There will be 234 million people who watch connected TV this year. That's a lot of scale. And those viewers are watching more. It's not just that there are more of them piling into the medium, they're watching more of it. We expect that there will be a 95% increase in time spent watching connected TV relative to just 5 years ago, 2019. And not surprisingly, advertisers are following. There's an estimate that by 2027, there will be 41 billion with a B dollars spent in advertising in connected TV. And so it's by 2027. And so no surprise really that more than 3/4 of all advertisers consider connected TV today to be either moderately or very significant to their advertising efforts. So I think the conclusion from this is, again, that connected TV is an opportunity that advertisers are taking advantage of right now. So I want to start with in thinking about the best ways to use it and how, with just a few changes, we can squeeze just a little bit more out of the medium. I want to start by talking to you performance marketers who may have tuned in. Performance marketers I distinguish from brand marketers in that they have an incentive, a powerful interest in driving a lower funnel outcome. They want to see and need to see more customers. They need to see a higher return on ad spend. They need to drive website visits. Those are the things that they measure their success by. We'll talk more about how brand marketers are different here in a bit. So how can those performance marketers get more out of the medium? Meaning they get all the performance they need to show to their CFOs, but also maybe squeeze a little bit more brand juice out of it as well for brand marketers. So the things that I would say that we see our best marketers do are first experiment with various ad lengths. 30 seconds is a great way for especially a new brand or a new product to introduce themselves to the market. But as that introduction takes shape and as you run that 30 over time, a lot of marketers will then step back to 15s for more quick hitting messages. It's really important for brands to invest in high production value. And what we see in this first step, 58% of viewers are more likely to recall an ad that has what I would call like Hollywood level production value compared to things like user generated content. So don't shortchange the effort to invest in creative and creative production that belongs, that's worthy of being on the biggest screen in the house. What's also very interesting, and maybe not surprising if we put on our consumer hats, is that 62% of us feel we have a strong emotional bond to the products and the brands that we buy. That's a cue for marketers to show that emotion back and to invest in emotion and strong casting and plot in place, things that are going to be memorable to the viewer and really help to stand out. And then, of course, there are the best practices that performance marketers, I think especially, are attuned to. Things like having a persistent URL, a website that's always visible so that your viewers know who you are and know how to get in touch with you. Having a call to action that's strong and powerful, and then having a logo visible so that you're creating that brand recognition. And this translates. When Mountain customers do this, we see consistently, on average, 41% lower cost per visit, site visit, and almost 113% higher conversion rate compared to those advertisers that eschew those best practices. And then certainly, weaving in not only creative that you can run year round, what we think of as evergreen creative, with creative that you might tweak a little bit for a seasonal moment or for a sale or for the launch of a new product. I want to share a case study here. And this is going to be a bit of show and a bit of tell. The case study here belongs to a company and a Mountain customer called Rumpel. Rumpel is a maker of world-class outdoor blankets, a necessity for people who love camping. And this example, which I'm about to walk you through, is, I think, really illustrative of just how very subtle, simple changes in the creative that are not expensive and not time-consuming to make can have a big outsized impact on performance. The first ad which we're about to play at the top is an ad that Rumpel built to hit their core customer. This is an outdoor enthusiast. And what you'll see in this 30-second spot is luscious outdoor scenery, the product being used as it is intended, and a very attractive cast that's using it. So why don't we tee up that first video and then we'll come back. So actually, the sequencing here is going to go a little bit out of order. But that video that we just saw actually is not the one that I teed up, but I'll speak to it now. That video that we just saw actually has a very subtle change to the beginning and the end. The beginning of that video that you saw actually were this cast in the ad enjoying Rumpel's products inside. And we call that audience, I call that audience sort of outdoorsy aspirational. These are people who like being outside, but they also like running water and electricity and sort of nesting at home. And Rumpel figured out that this was a very attractive audience for them, and they built a creative that spoke to that audience with that just very subtle change to the beginning. And then the end, there was an end frame. You saw the shop now call to action. This ad signals that this ad was retargeting their customer base, people who had already shown some interest in the product. So very, very subtle changes. End frame, beginning, that were just a little bit different. Why don't we play the second ad now? And I think you'll see, again, just some very subtle distinctions. There was a core product in use by these customers enjoying almost purely outdoor time. It also did not have an end frame with a call to action. This is a great example of an ad that's really about prospecting. We'll talk about prospecting, retargeting, and audience strategy here in just a minute. But it also had their logo present throughout so that people always understood what it is that they were seeing. This creative strategy and developing very specific creative for specific audiences and developing a learning approach to what combination of audiences and creative worked best has allowed Rumpel to scale and improve over time. This is going back a year or so, but in Q1, they were able to generate not bad, 1.5 return on ad spend. But by the time they got to Q4, all this accumulation of learning about audiences and creative resulted in a more than doubling of that to get to 3.6 return on ad spend. So it's just a really good example of what you can do with subtle changes. So that's creative. There's also a really powerful levers to be pulled in audience strategy, not just creative. So Mountain's best customers, including those that are performance marketing minded, but also want to build durable and distinctive brands, they do some things in common that I wanted to share. The first is they're always prospecting. And by prospecting, I mean they are reaching and converting all net new customers. And that's important for two reasons. The first is, prospecting on its own is very powerful. You can drive a lot of conversion from reaching new customers and sharing with them really powerful creative. But there will be some people who watch an ad in a prospecting audience who like the product, like the brand, but are just not ready to buy right now. Staying in front of them with great distinctive creative over time means that when they are ready to enter the market, they're more likely to remember you. And so prospecting is a way of getting more customers today, but minting new customers for tomorrow. And it's why it's such a powerful lever for performance marketers. Best performance marketers at Mountain, in terms of also driving brand, they reserve a year-round test budget for testing new audiences. And, the example that I just shared, that first ad, which showed just that subtle difference of Rumple's customers enjoying a product indoors and out, that was a product of a learning that Rumple did not anticipate that they would have. They did not anticipate that this outdoorsy aspirational audience would find their product so appealing. So they ran an experiment, saw that they got really strong results from that. And as you can see, this last bullet, when they put all that together, they saw that actually that outdoorsy aspirational audience drove a 35% higher conversion rate than their core audience. They never would have found that if they hadn't had some budget to experiment with new audiences. The other thing which our best brands do is they set an expectation internally that they are going to be a learning organization and that they are going to scale their budgets throughout the year to peak at the seasonal moment that matters the most to them, when they're going to be selling the most. For a lot of brands, that's Q4. But that may not necessarily be the case. There are a lot of brands that have other bigger sales moments throughout the calendar year. So having a plan to test and learn, always be testing and learning, and confidently being able to scale up the budget means that when you arrive at whatever your moment is as a marketer to get the most sales, that you will be able to confidently deploy the right combination of audience and of creative. Speaking to the power of great audiences, connected TV, as I mentioned, has powerful digital lineage, and it enables many of the same audience capabilities that we have come to expect from paid social. And so what I'm sharing with you here is a summary, a case study summary of an advertiser that's in the real estate space. Their primary objective, they're a B2B marketer, and their primary objective is to improve the quality of leads and drive more signups to their website. And so they kind of took a I'll have everything approach to audience targeting to really find the right combination. But they were deploying first-party audiences, third-party audiences, like premium third-party audiences, and using their CRM and mixing it together to really find the right approach to reaching new customers and retargeting customers who have already expressed some intent, some interest in the brand. And by putting all that together, they were able to see a significant improvement in their overall results. They were able to drive a cost per acquisition that was 20% below their target. And that's bankable savings. They saw a nearly 26% visit rate to their website running these campaigns. And those visitors were staying on the site viewing almost 4 pages for every visit. And their time spent on site, this was interesting to me, was 1.5 times higher than the average they were getting from their other channels. So there's something about connected TV that resulted in driving more traffic at a lower cost and getting the traffic to stay and linger and want to consume more information from the here's another case study, which I think a lot of people can relate to. I think, the Super Bowl certainly be a celebration of a lot of big brands, but a lot of small brands too are innovating and are coming to rely on connected TV to drive results. And this is a case study authored by the Houston Hyundai Auto Group. Houston Hyundai had been doing connected TV advertising, but they found there were two things that they saw lacking. The first is that it was difficult to measure at times. And the second thing was that it was inefficient, meaning it's a small, nimble organization. They don't have a big army of marketers. And so they really needed a tool that could automate a lot of that process and take the drudgery out of the work. So they came and started running on Mountain. And they really leaned into two different audience building approaches, which make perfect sense for an advertiser that really wants to dominate a particular market area, like this case, Houston. First, they relied on geo-targeting to really focus on just making sure their ads delivered in just a specific market. But then they overlaid that with audiences, third-party audiences that had expressed an interest in Hyundai. So they were able to identify Hyundai enthusiasts, Hyundai owners. And when they put all of that together with their campaign planning, they were also able to see very, very encouraging results with an 81% month-over-month improvement in cost per acquisition, a 15% month-over-month improvement in the cost per site visit, and 24% increase overall in raw conversions, and 11% increase overall in average site visits. So it's a great example of a company that's just able to go in with a thoughtful approach to audience, an openness to experimentation, and to be able to see some really, really positive results. Now, taking a great audience strategy and a compelling, distinctive, creative strategy and putting those things together work, I can tell you, a lot better when you hitch it to the right tools of the trade. And so here is a bit of word about Mountain. So as I mentioned, we're a self-serve connected TV advertising platform that is built for performance marketers. And over the last several months, we've made some critical improvements in that platform that have taken what was already very strong performance and made it even better. And so a few things that I'll highlight about the way Mountain works and some of the benefits that Mountain advertisers enjoy. The first is that we have made audience building, that task of building those audiences and experimenting with new audiences, even easier. It's possible now to access first and third party audiences all in a single view. We've introduced radius targeting into the platform so that you can identify a specific location, define a radius around it, and serve ads only in that area, which is a fantastic way of driving efficiency. We've also integrated with LiveRamp. LiveRamp is a provider of, among other things, really high quality third-party audiences that enable marketers to drive experimentation, the way that Houston Hyundai did by being able to identify Hyundai owners and people who are enthusiastic about Hyundai cars. The other thing which we've really invested heavily in is measurement. And again, connected TV opens up an opportunity for more precise audience measurement. What happens after the ad has been exposed? And so to facilitate that, over the last several months, Mountain has made significant investments to integrate with Google Analytics 4. This is the latest instance of Google Analytics. And it's the platform so many marketers use to understand the relative performance of all of the different paid media channels that they use. And what's driving site visits, what's driving conversions? Well, with Mountain and Google Analytics 4, you can see how your Mountain campaigns perform right alongside your paid search and social. We've also integrated with Rockerbox, which is another fantastic tool that many of our customers use to understand what's actually going on. What kind of results are they seeing from all of their advertising? And then finally, we've really stepped up over the years the amount of inventory that we buy. We've become one of the largest buyers of TV inventory in the United States. And that pays off in a couple of ways. It allows us, first of all, to get access to more premium placements. But it also means that we're able to buy at a higher volume and get pricing benefits, which we then pass on to our customers, who are then able to have that translate immediately into better performance. And so what we've seen from these changes, and there are others which I'm not touching on, is a 27% improvement in cost per acquisition and 38% more site traffic, more volume being driven into customers' conversion funnels. So we're getting near to the very end. Keep thinking about those questions and feel free to ask them. We're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A here at the end for John and I to tackle those questions. But I want to pivot now and talk to you brand marketers. I've been speaking a lot to performance marketers, but brand marketers have something to gain here too, again, with some very subtle changes to their creative and their audience strategy. They can see not only great brand building results, all the ones that they expect for things like brand lift, brand resonance, reach, audience reach, but they can also see improved lower funnel outcomes. What happens at, how many more people are buying your product or subscribing to your product or visiting your website after seeing the ad? It starts with here, audience strategy and really thinking through audience strategy. In addition to leveraging the precision of audience building within connected TV to match precise creative to precise audiences. For prospecting, you can also retarget customers. And by that, I mean, engage customers who've already expressed some interest in your brand. You can serve ads to people who visited specific products, for example, and maybe help to nurture that interest and get that intent a little bit closer to buying. You can also retarget existing customers. And a lot of companies have built very rich businesses around loyal customers. And so it's possible to use your own data to retarget customers and maybe give them a loyalty offer, an exclusive discount on products to reward their loyalty. So brand marketers can start by just doing a few things differently in their audience strategy and how they hook that to creative to drive a better result. And certainly creative has a big role to play for brand marketers and for performance marketers alike. The first thing that we remind brand marketers to do is really lean into the uniqueness of the medium. It allows for so much more variety of creative. And as you saw from that Rumple example, when I talk about creative variety and building that variety, it doesn't need to be all new shoots with all new timetables and all new casts, the things that really, for marketers, create knots in the stomach because they drive up creative production costs. No, these can be done very affordably. One thing, I was talking with a colleague of mine who spends her days thinking about how to help customers perform better on the platform, that she pointed out to me, which I wanted to share because I thought it was so smart, was the importance of a clear, compelling, and pleasant voiceover. So many of us watch television in crowded family room spaces, and there's a lot going on. Maybe you hear some clatter in the kitchen, or you've got, clothes to fold, or, you have kids to watch. And so what it means is that while we are watching TV, sometimes we're not really watching. In order to reach people like me, sometimes who can be distracted by what's happening in life around a TV screen, especially during an ad break, the best advertisers on Mountain use a great VO, a great voiceover. And that voiceover means that even if I turn away for a moment, I'm not watching the screen, I can hear it. And it still gives an advertiser a chance to land their message. In the creative realm, there are problems to be mindful of. And again, for you brand marketers who are thinking about coming to connected TV, one idea or one risk, which I'll address briefly, is the notion of ad fatigue. Ad fatigue is something we all relate to. We've seen, it's what happens when that feeling we get when we've seen the same ad for what feels like the 1040th time. And we're just sort of saying, almost saying, I'll buy your product if it means that you'll stop serving me this ad. Please make it go away. That ad fatigue has a real impact. It's not just an emotion that consumers feel or viewers feel when they see it. It actually has been shown to depress sales activity and website visitation. Unfortunately, if brands wait for ad fatigue to show up in their metrics, oftentimes it's too late to do anything about it. The momentum is sometimes too hard to be able to reverse. So our suggestion, and what we see the best advertisers on Mountain do, is they invest in creative and new creative in advance to head off that ad fatigue moment and make sure that they've got new ads to slide in on a regular basis with regular refreshes so that they keep their message fresh and help to avoid ad fatigue. Now, again, so I used to, in my career, I've produced a lot of TV ads. And when I think about creative production, I get a knot in my stomach because it's a big bill and it's an expense that you got to pay for even before you run it and before you get any revenue from your ad. So I know it can be stressful. Mountain has a couple of solutions to help make that creative process and building that creative variety and heading off ad fatigue easier. The first is a product called Creative as a Subscription, or CAS. Creative as a Subscription allows a brand to get regularly updated creative, say once a quarter, at no additional cost above and beyond media. There are other requirements that I'm not mentioning, but that's the gist of it. And so what that means is they can put more of their dollars to working media. It means that they're guaranteed a pipeline of fresh creative that's going to be, produced at the highest level. It's going to represent their brand at the highest level. And it just as that insurance policy that they know that if an ad starts to get stale, they're not going to have to wait very long for a new one to come along and take its place. The other offering that Mountain has to alleviate some of the pain points commonly associated with creative is QuickFrame. QuickFrame is a marketplace of some of the world's top video specialists. You can find people in there who are great at just editing. You can find specialists who know animation, sound. You can find people who can do soup to nuts, who can give you video strategy, storyboard development, production, all of it. And so it really is, it's a community that's meant to meet the needs of just about any creative requirement. And the benefit of working through this, and in the end for advertisers and for agencies, is they tend to get more creative, meaning more variety, that they can A/B test more. They tend to be able to get it faster, and they tend to get it at a lower price. And all of those things conspire to make the creative process and the creative output just as agile and nimble as the media component of this. So another case study for you, really focusing on the power and effectiveness of just how important creative refreshes can be. Replacements is the world's largest retailer of china, crystal, and silverware. They were running connected TV, but really wanted to break out of their particular creative approach, which I would describe as having been sort of evergreen, meaning it's the kind of ad they could run any time of the year and it would work. They came to Mountain and wanted to find ways to really change things up. So they developed a new creative strategy using Creative as a Subscription that focused on unboxing and really celebrating the discovery of some of the finest items that we think of, like silverware or fine china, that we save for our most precious moments in our homes and for our most dearest friends and loved ones. And they celebrated the unboxing of that in that context. And by really leaning into this with regular creative refreshes to continue to show that, they found that relative to their just running the same ad year round, they were able to see a 417% lift in month-over-month return on ad spend. That's over a 5x increase, and a 240% lift in revenue year over year once they embrace this strategy. So it's a significant opportunity, leaning into really investing in developing a creative practice that's every bit as rigorous as your media practice can pay immediate dividends. So we're almost at the point to get into your questions. But before I do, I'll leave you with these three takeaways. The first is connected TV has something for brand marketers to be able to drive better return on ad spend, more site visits, more conversions, more revenue from their campaigns by doing just a few things differently. Similarly, connected TV brings all of the power of performance marketing, but also building great brands to enable performance marketers to be able to get even stronger, better brand distinction in the creative that they run. And that doesn't require that they sacrifice any of the performance expectations that they have of connected TV and paid media overall. And the two levers that marketers can pull to have the most outsized impact on whether it's building a great brand or delivering better performance, those two levers are creative and audience strategy. And the Mountain customers that focus on those two things tend to see the best overall results. So that's all that I've prepared. We've got plenty of time for questions. I've also included my email here, mcollins@mountain.com. If any of you watching this would like to reach out offline and separately, happy to engage that way. But why don't we get into our questions? John, if you're still there.
I am definitely still here. Thank you so much, Matt. That was a great presentation. And just to remind everybody as we get into the Q&A, to ask a question, all you have to do is enter your question to the Ask a Question text area and then click the send button. And a lot of you have already, and we're going to get to those questions. The first one comes from Heather. And Heather asks, with performance television, are you finding that brands want to solely focus on the digital conversion, or are they striving to combine and measure the digital conversion and the in-store conversion? And then the follow-up is, does Mountain have a solution for measuring the in-store performance from a CTV campaign?
Yeah, great question, Heather. Thank you so much for asking. We see marketers who are interested in both of those things, quite frankly. Certainly the e-commerce marketers care an awful lot about what's happening digitally through a website or a mobile app, and there are quite a bit of solutions for those things, for sure. But as Hyundai, Houston Hyundai is a brick and mortar location, and they're selling I would submit is probably the second most expensive things that any of us will ever buy in a new car. And so we see that there are a number of marketers who are also leaning into connected TV to drive store traffic and to get people out of their homes and into their cars to go shopping in person. And both of those things Mountain can support with all kinds of different capabilities. And I think, this is just my observation, but I think that more and more that offline component is going to be more and more important. I think the post-COVID, more and more people are looking forward to getting out and actually experiencing shopping rather than just through e-commerce. So totally with you on that, Heather. I think the in-person piece is important, and Mountain is up for it.
All right, great. And the next question will go to, let's see. Let's go to Emily, who asks, what exactly should marketers be demanding from their connected TV platforms to ensure performance is being reliably attributed to campaigns?
Yeah, Emily, that is a superb question. And it's a good one because our TVs are not clickable, right? We can't go up and slap the TV screen to get it to do something. And so the way Mountain has done this, and what we recommend to consumers or to users of connected TV, is to show what their attribution method is for connected TV. The methodologies that were created to support linear TV are, I would say, as good as they're ever going to be for linear TV, but they're not nearly as sufficient as they need to be for a digital medium. Here I'm thinking of like measurement techniques that involve lift over baseline. There are all kinds of, I'm not going to get into it, but there are all kinds of potential flaws of that approach. It is, again, maybe the best you can do in the linear television environment, but not so much for a digital one. So ensure that you're getting an attribution methodology that makes sense for digital. And I'll say that for Mountain, it's a system that we call verified visits. It's what I would call a conservative approach. And here's why. In order for a verified visit, meaning a visit to a website that you can attribute to a connected TV campaign to count and to be counted towards Mountain, three things have to prevail. The first is the ad has to have been seen. So the ad has to be viewable on the screen. The second is that if a site visit happens, it happens within an attribution window that the marketer sets, not one that we set, but the marketer says it happens in the window that we care about. The third is that visit not be attributed to any other UTM parameter. So if, say that the first two things prevail and a user is exposed to an ad, a user visits a website related to that campaign, but comes to find out they did it by clicking on a social ad or on a search post, or search result, Mountain doesn't take credit for that. So even though you could argue that Mountain may have influenced that particular event, we're not taking credit for that. So it's super important that that there be a system that works for connected TV and makes sense for connected TV and not just sort of a legacy thing from linear television.
Great. Okay, next question comes from Doug. And he asks, what kind of financial and internal resources are needed to use Mountain? In other words, what kind of media budget is needed to consider using Mountain? And how many people or FTEs are needed to administer the tool? Very practical question.
Yeah, it's a super practical question. Doug, thank you for asking that. So the best Mountain customers test the platform. They come to it with a test budget. And though the test budget should vary depending on the size of the audience that you're trying to reach, in my experience, those test budgets are very comparable to what marketers would oftentimes expect to pay if they were testing an all new, say, paid social ad product or something like that. Meaning it's the kind of budget that's not going to put the balance sheet at risk and will allow you to get signal. And the look, 2/3 of the Mountain customers never advertised on TV before they came to Mountain, but they did have in common that they run a lot of paid search and social. And so that notion of like, okay, I'm going to launch with a test budget, nothing crazy for my brand, get signal back, determine the right combination of audience and creative that works, and then gradually scale it up as long as I'm seeing durable positive results that meet my goals. And that's typically how they operate. In terms of FTEs, I mean, it's a self-serve platform that automates optimization, that serves that measurement either in whatever measurement platform you use. Like if you like Tableau, you can bring your results from Mountain into your reporting. Audience building is all very, very simple. We've taken a lot of guesswork out of that. The creative upload process is simple. There are teams that make this work with just one person. But it's also possible to put more resource out, and certainly the more complex your brand is, like if you're running a lot of different product lines, sometimes that can become more work than what a single person can do. But it's really meant to be efficient and allow marketers to go back and maybe spend more time on the strategy.
All right, and Doug asked another great question. You were talking a little bit before about how important creative was. So his question is, does Mountain have wear out rates for creative to help guide clients determine when creative needs to be refreshed?
Yeah, wear out rates. I mean, to me, I that gets right back to the ad fatigue question. And it's a superb one. Doug, you got some good questions. What we have seen is that ad fatigue starts to become measurable, like detectable, after only about 2 to 3 weeks. Now, that's just when it starts to happen. It doesn't really become a problem for much longer than that. But certainly we would say that on the high end, we'd recommend not letting creative go any much longer than like 70, 80 days before you refresh it. Now, that refresh does not necessarily mean it has to be an all new shoot, all new cast, all new location. It can simply mean that maybe with one shoot, one cast, one location, one production team, you bank a bunch of different shots and a bunch of different sequences with the idea that simply restitching it together in a different sequence in a different order can give enough variety to the viewer so that they don't feel like they're tiring of it. So I want to be careful when I talk about like heading off this erosion of interest, this ad fatigue. This does not mean you need to take a stick of dynamite to your creative budget. It can really be done very easily.
Right. I mean, it's about iterations or creating those iterations from the very beginning.
From the very beginning. That's exactly right, John. And more in a world of connected TV, which allows for A/B testing the way you would do on digital, more and more creative agencies or creative resources, they know to anticipate this. And so you can ask, you should feel as a brand, you can ask and push your creative agency to say, hey, don't just show me the storyboard. Show me what's the storyboard, but then show me the plan so that we can get enough content in the bank to be able to make a lot of creative variety from one shoot so that we can head off this ad fatigue. We got plenty of different ad units that we can test over time. And quite frankly, we can do this very efficiently. And create more and more creative agencies are ready for that, and they've heard that request, they've fulfilled that request from other clients in there. So it's perfectly appropriate to ask.
Right. Okay. Let's see. A whole bunch of questions. Let's see if we definitely have time to get to them. Next one comes from Michael. And talking, nice news hit here. Media Post reported yesterday that creators, we were talking about the quality of creatives, so this is a good way to address that. Media Post reported yesterday that creators with rough cut videos are breaking through. How does that square with the Hollywood level production values?
It's a good question. Yeah. John, were you going to have something to say about it?
No, I was just saying it's a little bit of pushback on the idea that that's what appeals. So how would you answer that?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that the metric that we showed is that the more like highly produced ads tend to generate specifically better recall. It may be that the rougher stuff, the more rough and ready stuff, is able to attract attention, turn your head. It may end up being entertaining in its own way or relatable in its own way. I will admit I haven't read the Media Post article, but I would say that there's room for both of these things to be true. And it's not to say that user-generated content or the rough and ready stuff doesn't have a place in your video creative strategy. But if what you're looking for is recall, and I think if what you're looking for is to be able to stand out on the big screen, there is something to be said for fitting in order to stand out. And what I mean by that is, you're going to see this on Sunday, I predict, that the best brands that show up to advertise in the Super Bowl are going to come with their best creative foot forward. The advertising breaks that we see on television tend to be filled with thoughtful storytelling, good casting, great locations, animations.
Traditional high production, but people would traditionally think of high production values. Right. I saw a recent study about, again, this idea of what quality actually means, or actually it was about premium video, right? So what falls under premium video, it really is it really does, as you said before in your presentation, it kind of leads into the creativity aspect of it. So it may not look, may not have look like a big budget Hollywood production, but the creativity behind the idea, maybe even if it's presented in what Michael termed rough cut videos or Media Post did, it would still qualify as some type of premium video because of the idea behind it and the execution. Really does come to that, right? And again, that's like the secret sauce in any creativity. Yeah, that's right.
I think you're spot on, and there's room for all of it. I just think that when building that creative for that viewing experience on what, a 60-inch or bigger television canvas, the data suggests, our peer group suggests, that showing up with better production values will have a better result, specifically on the metric of recall.
All right, let's get to another question. This one's from Brendan, and it's you talked about clicking, not being able to click on linear TV. Without being able to click on it on TV, which metric would you say is more important for an ad success, number of impressions or ad view time?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brendan. Thank you for asking that. I'll preface this by saying that the typical Mountain customer is more focused on what happens after the ad has been exposed, and what they're really looking for is, at a minimum, what are some changes that I can see in the mid funnel, and that oftentimes is expressed by how much traffic am I seeing come to my website or to my app as a result of having advertised on Mountain. And that's why the verified visit, which you can infer from that, verified website visit, that metric which I described, is so important to so many advertisers, because it allows them to confidently know, all right, it wasn't from another paid channel of mine that happened in the attribution window as a result of this creative being running. Like, that's the metric that matters most to them. I think for me, I guess, this gets perhaps more into the branding question, and it's a good one, maybe a good debate to have. if you're thinking about that top of funnel, I know that there are some marketers out there who are very mindful of like, what's the right balance of reach and frequency, and how many impressions do I need to deliver to an audience in order to start to see like that memorability, that mind share that we all want to be able to cultivate to take hold. I suspect that probably matters more than ad view time to me personally. I haven't studied this. This is just me riffing a bit, but I've seen, in fact, I ran a campaign once as back in the day where it was dominated by 15s, not by 30s. And I saw amazing results from that because the creative was super powerful. So the total ad view time by definition was going to be less because it was dominated by 15s as opposed to 30s than it would be if the situation had been reversed. And I've had those types of experiences too. But the results I saw out of it, I guess just based purely on that impression count of that, like, okay, I reached that viewer, I reached them and was able to hit with a great message, ended up, for me in that particular campaign, generating better results. So I guess if I were leaning into this, I would say impressions would matter more to me, but that's one man's opinion.
All right, the next question kind of hits on a similar angle, kind of talking about a different type of hit. So you're talking about digital and shorter versus longer on TV, but this one is about this one comes from Brad, who asks, CTV advancements are making targeting and measurement rival what's capable on social. What are the best ways to align these channels to complement one another and prevent redundancy? So you talk about digital website visits. What about social?
Yeah, great question, Brad. I would say I'm going to bring my answer back to the themes of audience and creative, which I highlighted a lot in earlier. And that is that when it comes to creative, the first thing that I would say is that we see that advertisers that have a consistent creative narrative across all of their touch points, including, by the way, their websites or their landing pages or their apps, the more that they can make the creative experience awaiting the customer after they've made the click to match what brought them there, the more likely it is that they're going to convert. And so I would say aim for creative consistency, not sameness. Social, I don't know what the number is. I'm going to guess 90% of social consumption happens on a phone now. So creative strategy for a mobile device is going to be a different thing than creative strategy for a 60-inch device. So thinking through that experience while at the same time maintaining a creative consistency across those touch points is going to be key. For audience strategy, it is certainly possible now with connected TV to take the same audiences that you would use to run your social campaign and bring them into TV, those same audiences. So that allows for some notion perhaps of like sequential storytelling, which gets back perhaps a little bit to the creative, but you could say, you know what, if the first touch point is going to be through TV, how might I think about then people see the ad on TV and then, like a lot of us, we go to our phones to learn more. What might that look like? Especially if you're able to make the audiences largely on par with one another, it opens up that opportunity. Now I served one message. What's the next message I want them to see that delivers consistency, but also newness to that audience? So I think there's room to play here in terms of alignment with other channels of both creative and an audience.
That's a good question. I think we have time for a couple more questions, at least one. Next one comes from Annie, and it's, what steps can I take to make sure that my connected TV strategy makes the biggest impact from the outset?
Annie, thank you. That's a really good question. And certainly the best advertisers are the ones who are not making this up as they go. I would say a couple things, like first order things. Number one, approach the channel especially if you're new to it, with an eye towards experimentation. Come in with a test budget and a plan to quickly learn and try to figure out what's working, what combination of creative and audiences works best for you. Number two, have a point of view about audience, but base it in a hypothesis. You won't really know until you run it, but have a hypothesis, an idea about who your audience is for connected TV, and how might that change over time. Number three, it would be make sure that you're aligning your creative, the creative that you produce right up front, to match your view of the customer. Again, when I spent millions of dollars on linear television as a marketer. I was using the very blunt instrument of demographics. I advertised. I used to work in video games, John, and so I did a lot of video game advertising to tween boys. And so my target audience would be boys 6 to 12 or 6 to 14. I forget what the Nielsen break was, but like that was it. Nowadays, we can know so much more. We can know 6 to 14-year-old sports fans, anime fans, makers, like all kinds of different things that might influence what we build for them creatively. And so having a point of view about the nuance and what those audiences are actually comprised of, and maybe that requires breaking a bit of that habit of relying on, big demographic swaths to tell us who our audience is, that might be required. So it starts with, I think, testing, having a testing mindset, a particular point of view about your audience, and a creative strategy that fits your audience strategy. I think if you do those three things well, you'll come to the table in a better position to succeed than if you didn't.
All right, and then we can squeeze in one more because I really want to get to this one. This one comes from Artie, and it's talking about I love it because it's based on breaking news. Now that most of the, not breaking news, but news, what's happening in the TV industry right now. Now that most of the major streaming services have ad-supported tiers, from an audience perspective, how do you foresee that evolution affecting the value of CTV? Yeah,
super question, Artie. It was Artie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Artie, thank you. So, here we've seen like Amazon's getting into the game. Netflix, in a very splashy way, got into the game not long ago with ad-supported streaming. And so that's really good news because it opens up more opportunities for advertisers to engage their audience, engage and convert their audience.
Do you think ad fatigue, the concept of ad fatigue in a different way, are we gonna reach some type of inflection point there? With all the different streamers coming into the game, I've heard a lot of people in the television industry say, "Well, what is the difference now between streaming and cable?"
Yeah, good question. Well, there are a couple of important distinctions. I mean, the first is that the ad breaks tend to be much shorter, and there are fewer ad minutes. I don't hold me to this, but I want to say that for a typical hour of cable or broadcast television, you're looking at like 16 minutes of ad time. And those ad breaks tend to be much shorter. And while that can make competing for those ad breaks harder, it means that as an advertiser, your message is competing against fewer brands in those same shorter ad blocks. And of course, the addition of audience into these ad-supported tiers will relieve some of that pressure of like, oh gosh, what if I can't make it into one of these ad breaks? Well, there are going to be a lot more customers, a lot more ad breaks coming.
Right.
But I think that time is, I would say the evolution should certainly favor customers who are going to get access to premium content at lower prices. And that will draw more and more viewers. And I think the net effect is inevitably going to be better for advertisers.
All right. I think we made it in just under the wire, Matt. Boy, you were good at this.
Yeah, so are you. All right, it takes two, John.
All right, I want to thank everybody for attending Adage's custom webcast sponsored by Mountain. Just a couple of reminders before we depart. Remember, you can view and listen to this presentation on demand using the same link you used to attend today, and you'll receive an email as soon as the archive is ready. On behalf of Matt Collins, the Director of Product Marketing at Mountain, thank you so much for your time and have a great day. See you, Matt.
Okay, everybody.